Good evening, YouTube. This is Tired Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully, you guys have had a good Thursday. Well, we knew Ian was on on approach to making a second landfall, but little did I realize that Ian just seems to have this special power of strengthening way faster than it should. So yeah, now we're dealing with a Category 1 storm again, which is unbelievable. I was not expecting it to make it to Category 1. It's sitting at 75-mile-per-hour winds right now. And it's actually going to strengthen a little bit more before landfall, which is insane. I'm hoping that there isn't any more strengthening, because we saw what it did over here, and it's not like these waters are too much different. Maybe a little bit cooler than what these were. But, man, I've honestly had about enough of Ian. I'm just hoping that everyone over here towards Charleston, between Charleston and really Myrtle Beach, I'm hoping that everyone is prepared. And even inland, you guys need to be on the lookout, because we have a slew of hurricane warnings and tropical storm watches and warnings as well. Some of these areas include Augusta, Savannah, we have Columbia, South Carolina, Florence, South Carolina. And this even goes into North Carolina, areas like Charlotte, Fayetteville, Wilmington even. Because, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is, and yes, I'm about to say it again to anyone that's been watching my videos of Ian up to this point, the impacts span far wider than this forecast count. We're going to go over all of them and try to get you prepared, so that way we can get you through it tomorrow. But we'll go ahead and start with the storm track. We will go ahead and look at wind speeds first. Okay. What in the world? Alright. So, okay, my computer's doing weird stuff right now. So this area is projecting the probability of tropical storm force winds. And this is actually a good indicator of just how far this wind field stretches out. And not only that, but this also will show that this spans far wider than the cone of uncertainty that we've been looking at here. So obviously the bright pink color is pretty much the highest chance that you will see tropical storm force winds at some point between now and Tuesday, right? So of course here's our pink area right here. That's pretty much all of South Carolina, most of North Carolina, and the coastal part of Georgia here. Florida, you're going to be out of this shortly here. And then, of course, in the red area, we're looking at about 70 to 80%, especially in the darker red, we're leaning towards 80. And this stretches all the way into North Carolina here. Areas like, I'm not super familiar with this area, but towards Fayetteville, we're looking at maybe a 60% chance of tropical storm force winds. In fact, I would almost say that's bound to go up. Some of these areas also up here may go up that are in the yellow where we're sitting at about 40 to 50, maybe even 60%. The areas to the west though, like maybe towards Atlanta here, there is a chance that you could get a quick sustained tropical storm force wind, but keep in mind you're on the western side of the storm. The eastern side, or the right side of the storm, tends to be the more chaotic side. Eastern half tends to be a little bit more peaceful. So I'm still not keen on what's going to happen over here. But the further east you go, that's where the worst weather will be. The further west you are, like towards western and central Atlanta, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of this. Especially as, from what I've been seeing, this tends to be trending more and more to the north and east. So Atlanta, we'll watch you guys, but I'm not expecting a lot. May get some pop-up showers and thunderstorms in that area, but beyond that, not a lot going on there. Savannah, however, Brunswick, all of you guys, that's a different story. The storm's gonna make a close pass, and you'll be close enough to it to where you will get a little bit of everything. Maybe a diminished tornado threat, but mostly I'm expecting tornadoes over here. Speaking of which, we'll go over that in a little bit. But first, we're going to go over the tropical storm force winds and the arrival time that we're expecting. So, pretty much right now, we can be experiencing tropical storm force winds in areas like Savannah, Brunswick, and then over towards South Carolina. Pretty much the entire coast is probably experiencing them right now. When we can start to expect them more towards Florence and Columbia, it's going to be early in the morning, about 2 a.m. And then towards Charlotte, maybe a little bit later into Friday morning, we can start to experience those tropical storm force winds as Ian's moving. And we'll see what happens from this point, but I do think once it goes inland this time, there's no coming back for it. And we will start to see the storm weaken and eventually dissipate over land and be kicked out to sea by the trough. So we'll go ahead and also take a look at the storm surge threat. I'm not expecting to see numbers like, what in the world just happened? Okay. Okay, there we go. That was odd. Alright, so here we are looking at our storm surge tool here. This is for inundation. Where can we expect where are the most of these areas susceptible? Where are the areas most susceptible to storm surge? Jeez, I'm having a lot of tongue twisters lately. And actually, so far it looks like we're okay here. This area is a little bit better suited for being able to take on storm surge, mainly because this area has been hit by a few big hurricanes in the past. So the areas that are susceptible here are a little bit more limited. There is a potential for storm surge flooding that's greater than 1 foot above ground, but those areas are actually few and far in between, which is great news. So maybe we won't see, so odds are we won't see an entire disaster like what we were seeing in Florida, in which pretty much the west coast of Florida is extremely susceptible to surge. We'll go over the rainfall and flash flooding potential, and then we'll go ahead and look at our tornado threat. And I mean, we're still getting up there with some pretty high values here. We have one area right here towards where the storm will be making landfall, most likely where we're looking at maybe 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. This could potentially go up to maybe 8 feet in some spots. Wouldn't rule it out, but for the most part, definitely a far cry from what we were seeing over towards Tampa and areas to the south. So we'll go ahead and look at the rainfall, and this is what I'm most concerned about, especially inland. Now this is basically through Sunday, so basically offshore is where we're expecting the most rainfall, but I do think either in Charleston or just to the north of it is where our greatest concern for flash flooding is going to be. I will not rule out areas like Charlotte, maybe Raleigh, Durham, and maybe even Wilmington, where we have a threat for flash flooding. Also can't rule out the northeast here, because it depends on how long this system will take to eventually move out to sea. Just how long the ridge will keep this around is going to be a big question as to how this forecast will turn out. So our flash flood threat, of course, our risk is highest right here in the red. No surprises there. That is a moderate risk for flash flooding. The yellow is our slight risk area at 15%, and our green is a marginal risk at 5%. So this is the overall accumulation of everything over the next 2 days, and then here's the outlook for Sunday if it will load. And it's not. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at the tornado threat here. Always on the right front quadrant of these storms. we can always look for a chance for tornadoes here. So basically anywhere from Myrtle Beach all the way up to even Virginia Beach and areas north of there, maybe even not necessarily getting into DC, but relatively close, we have a chance of a tropical tornado or two. Our greatest risk, of course, will be towards Wilmington and maybe just to the east of Raleigh. And then, of course, the same will be said for our wind threat. There's also a marginal risk for severe weather around the Four Corners region. We have mainly a damaging wind threat. It's isolated in nature. Some storms will possibly carry some 60-mile-per-hour winds. Figured I'd at least try to cover that since all I've been doing is talking about Ian. So last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and look at a couple of forecast models if we can. Mainly it's gonna be the GFS because the Euro is still out of date right now. We're waiting for it to upload, but we're gonna go ahead and look at the 18Z GFS and see what it has to show us here. So it's pretty much in in alignment with the current NHC track. It's mainly looking like Charleston or just to the north of it, somewhere in between Charleston and North Myrtle Beach. That's where we're expecting the storm to make its second landfall. And then this hangs around the mid-Atlantic here through Saturday. And then maybe Sunday it gets kicked out to sea, and then we're done with this, most likely by Monday. We may go ahead and take a look at the 12Z here. I don't really want to, so to speak, but it's the only thing we really got from the Euro. But because the Euro has also been probably the most reliable model throughout this entire storm. The Euro was the one that started making the call that was going to push further towards the Panhandle, Florida, than not the Panhandle, but the peninsula of Florida versus the Panhandle. And then from there, we saw the Euro kind of making a push towards Tampa and then areas a little bit further south. The other models were seemed like they were almost catching up to the Euro in a way. So, as my computer froze. Okay, there we go. My mouse is froze. Yep, my mouse is froze completely. Oh wait, here we go. I don't know why that's been happening a lot lately, to be honest with you. So, all right, so here we are again. It's our 8 o'clock time. This is this is Hurricane Ian, of course, and it's pretty much showing the same thing. Maybe a slightly more southern track from this, but it wobbles its way towards the same areas, and pretty much is doing the same thing. So there's a lot of confidence that between Charleston and Myrtle Beach will be the greatest area of concern over the next couple of days. Here's our ridge kicking it out by, looks like Monday, just like the GFS. It's a lot of model greens, but it'll be interesting to see what the 18Z Euro has to say about this. Actually, a 12Z had it hanging out about here. Becomes post-tropical at that point, but it still may bring some additional rainfall to the northeast here. So that's a pretty interesting look there. We'll see if that holds or not. But this is the end of the video here. Thank you guys for watching the videos on Ian so far. There's still many more to make considering the situation we have at hand, and I'll be making 2 videos a day as long as I have to for this. But don't worry, we will be covering other topics as soon as Ian's over. But this, of course, is going to take precedence because I want to try to see if I can help get the warning out to people that need it. But that being said, if you like what I've been doing so far, definitely let me know in the comments. Leave me a like or subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell people that live in South Carolina, North Carolina, or wherever it could be affected. As long as people are watching these videos, of course, I'll be continuing to make them. But anyways, enough rambling. It's been Tyler, Metalhead Weatherman. I will see you guys in the morning. Have a good night.